In today's fast-paced life, it's very easy to underestimate the power of a very simple activity like walking. It's extremely simple, it is accessible, we don't really require any kind of skill sets to be able to go walking. We don't really require any kind of special equipment. It can be done at any time of the year. And yet we tend to take it for granted, and not many of us really bring walking into our daily regular routine. This piece of advice would have been given to us by parents, by well-wishers, by family members, by healthcare professionals as well. And though it seems like a very cliched piece of advice, it definitely does ring true. So on today's episode of Mental Health Unplugged, we're exploring a little bit of why walking is helpful in terms of being able to maintain our physical and our mental well-being. So there's a mountain of research that is available that talks about how walking can be an extremely potent medicine for the brain. And one of the researches that I found extremely interesting was a study that claimed that walking outdoors, right? So walking in nature, amidst nature, helps to increase your self-esteem and your mood within 5 minutes. Yes, you heard that right. It's 5 minutes. Right? And the reason that it says is that when we have difficulties in our life, when we're stressed, when we have challenges, maybe we've had a fight with someone, there's conflict that's happening, there's pressure, deadlines, all of that, we tend to focus a lot on that, right? We tend to use a lot of our attention by thinking about all of this, and this becomes very voluntary attention that we have. And voluntary attention takes up energy from our reserves of attention and energy, right? Voluntary attention comes from our reserves of energy and attention. Whereas when we are walking in nature, our voluntary attention turns into involuntary attention, meaning that the brain is freed up a little bit more and it can start learning to deal with the fatigue that is happening in our mind. Hence, it tends to make us start feeling a little better. Another benefit of walking is that it has been found that there's a protein in the brain that gets released when we start to walk, right? And this is usually with moderately paced walking or higher, definitely not with a very slow walk, but any kind of walk that is moderately paced or more. And this kind of a walk increases the release of a specific protein that is found in our brain. And this protein, what this protein does is that it ensures the survival of the neurons and it increases the synaptic connections. Now, what is a neuron? A neuron is an individual brain cell, right? It's an individual cell and our brain is made up of these neurons. So in fact, we have about 86 million neurons in each human brain, right? And when we start walking and this protein is released, this protein is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And when the BDNF levels increase, it tends to increase the survivability of each neuron, and it also tends to increase the synaptic connections. Now, how do neurons communicate with each other? They communicate through synaptic connections, right? And when this communication increases, because the connections are increasing, it helps our cognitive functioning to be a little bit more effective, and there's an overall enhancement of our cognitive functions. Walking may also help with creativity, right? This is mainly because your brain uses up a lot of oxygen, right? So it uses 3 times more oxygen than your muscles do. And when you engage in any kind of aerobic exercises, you're making more oxygen available. Oxygen is the fuel that's available for the muscles and the brain. And engaging with any kind of aerobic exercises increases the fuel that goes to the brain and the muscles in your body. And this increase in fuel makes the brain super excited, and it helps to kind of generate new ideas. It helps to kind of come up with new insights. It helps to keep you on your toes. It keeps you more creative. It helps you to kind of make connections that you possibly would not have thought of otherwise. So this is one of the reasons why walking can also help with being a little bit more creative. Research has also found that when we're stressed, it tends to impair many aspects of our cognitive functioning, right? It could be our memory, it could be our mood, it could be our attention. Overall functioning, cognitive functioning tends to reduce. And when we're walking in nature, it helps to reduce the impact of stress. And one of the reasons is what we call the optic flow. Now, optic flow is a perception that objects are moving past us, right? So when you're walking, you walk past a tree, it moves past you, right? Then you walk past something else that is stationary. And this kind of movement is something that helps quieten the neural circuit that is responsible for stress. Hence, the brain shifts into a state that is more relaxed, which is why it reduces your feeling of stress and feeling of anxiety or tension. Now I understand that as simple as walking may be, it may not really be possible for every single person, right? There are people who are challenged in terms of mobility. There are people who are who maybe have too many responsibilities at home and don't have the independence of stepping out. There might be people who live in a unsafe neighborhood and may not really be able to go out for a walk. And these are real challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. But just to bring it up here is, I really hope that you find some way else to be able to deal with your stress and anxiety on a daily basis, to be able to maintain your physical and your mental well-being. So that being said, I hope this video was informative. Do like and subscribe and share. Thank you.